Good afternoon and welcome to Austin Business Report. Today is Tuesday, the 8th of November 2011, and I'm Natakon Pladi.
And Weena Jongpasit. His Majesty the King is very concerned with the country's flood victims that he was ill last week, although the monarch's condition has improved, according to Her Royal Highness Princess Julapon. The princess made the statement while visiting and giving donations to flood victims in Pathum Thani, according to a local news report. About a week ago, His Majesty the King watched flood news stories on television for 5 hours, said the princess, adding that the monarch, who has been concerned about the people's plight following the deluge, was probably stressed and became ill afterwards. His Majesty the King loves his people like his children. When he is aware that the people are suffering, so does he. But he said very little and turned out to develop symptoms of illnesses such as internal bleeding. But now his condition is returning to normal, the princess said.
Before we head on into other updates, especially on Yingluck Shinawatra today, let's hear the updates on the flood situation, starting off in eastern Bangkok. Bangkok District Director has reported that water started seeping into the area, and currently officials are trying to negotiate with Bungkum villagers not to destroy water gates at Ta Nang Canal, which, if the negotiations fail, the Mall Bangkok shopping complex will be inundated within 4 to 5 days. Lat Phrao 101 intersection will be affected first.
And in the meantime, water has already entered Ram Kamhang 66, while water from Huamak Canal has started to overflow into Ram Kamhang 60 and 68. Klong Samsat, or the Sansab Canal, water levels still remain high, but has not overflowed both banks as of yet.
And moving on to Pahon Yotin and Bang Sư area on Pahon Yotin Road, Kampang Phet intersection, water has continued to spread and now threatens to enter the marketing organization for farmers, or generally known as Otagor Market. Observers in the area believe it will be inundated within this afternoon as traffic has become difficult around the area, where small cars are forced to use small soy routes to avoid the rising waters, and water has started appearing from the sewers in front of the Otagor Market.
Also around Pahon Yotin intersection as well, the Bang Sư Canal is overflowing. This intersection is said to be a strategic point to help drain water from Wipawadi Rangsit Road. Water levels in that area is at 10 centimeters high.
Now moving on to the post-flood rehabilitation plan, Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra is expected to appoint Dr. Wirapong Ramangkoon, a former finance minister, as chairman of the National Rehabilitation Committee to rebuild the flood-ravaged economy. Patara Securities has forecast that the country's GDP growth would be reduced to 2.5% in the base case scenario and to only 1.5% in the worst-case scenario due to the worst massive flooding in more than 5 decades. The Bank of Thailand earlier forecast that GDP would drop to 2.8% this year from 4%. A cabinet source said Yingluck would set up 2 high-powered committees at today's cabinet meeting, one of which would be headed by Wirapong, a veteran economist, to formulate a strategy to revive the country's economy, which has been hit hard by the massive flooding. More than 14,000 firms have been directly or indirectly affected by this natural disaster over the past few months, including 1,000 factories at 7 industrial estates in Ayutthaya and Pathum Thani provinces, which are the country's 3rd largest industrial area. The source said Yingluck would also set up another committee to invest in mega infrastructure projects under the so-called New Thailand program. This committee will focus on water resources management schemes worth several hundred billions of baht in order to tackle the flooding issue in the long run. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Yingluck, who has been severely criticized for the government's shortcomings in coping the flood crisis, said every party concerned should now work together to solve the immediate problems. Earlier, it was reported that the Army's top brass has rated Yingluck's performance during this crisis as a failure, 4.5 out of 10, but General Prayut Chan-o-cha, the Army Commander-in-Chief, denied there was any such rating on the government's performance.